I reeled it in really hard. And the pike took it. It's a small one. There it is, looking for the underwater float. Hey everyone, it's Sergey here and welcome to the Assistance TV YouTube channel. Today I'm going to tell you about fishing with fishing circles. There won't be any fish in this video. I'm just going to tell you about the types of circles, I use them, why I set them upside down, how to rig them, how I rig them. So there will be 3 types of rigging. I'll tell you that in my region, what's worked best for fishing this season and how to rig them better. Double hooks, treble hooks, what length of leader, and in general, what can happen. Guys, let's start from the beginning with what a circle is. A circle is this thing here. It's a piece of foam. On one side it's painted, and on the other side it's just white. You see, I have them labeled at the bottom. The cargo and float are signed. I'll tell you a little later about each type of mug, also signed floating. At the very beginning, when you come to a fishing store and buy mugs, they will tell you whether they are equipped or not. I definitely recommend getting unrigged circles and rigging them to suit your needs. That way, you'll do everything precisely and correctly, and it will actually work for catching fish because rigged circles are made from rough materials and coarse leaders, which pike are afraid of. That's not quite right. It's better to do it yourself. You know, when you do something yourself, like fixing something, I don't know, the car is there, at home in the kitchen, you're doing something with the pipe, the sink, the wash basin. Well, anything is always better than having someone do it for you. Because you do it yourself, you do it for yourself, you do it well, and that's how you initially came in and got an unrigged circle. This is a thing made of foam, a frame, and a little tube. How does this thing work? Well, circles have been used since ancient times. Our grandfathers used to fish with pastovushki. They fished with some other gear, just setting them up. There weren't any foam circles back then. And make them with your own hands, really? Damn, you can do it in a matter of minutes, I'll tell you later. I also caught pike on a bottle. It is not necessary to use a circle, but this is the easiest. You don't need to do anything. Why reinvent the wheel if it's already been done for us, right? So the circle, it's made of foam. One side is smooth and painted in a bright color, while the other side is white with a sort of groove. The little tube is there just like a regular straw. And sharik, the ball is painted on one side and white on the other. The ball is put on the tube like this. You see, I'm spinning it on purpose right now. So you can see, when I spin it, it rotates correctly. This thing here, how do they recommend setting up the circles? Well, they don't recommend it the way most people do. The red part is at the top. This ball goes down like this. A slit is made here and the fishing line is threaded through. I'll show you everything else when we start equipping it. And this is how it stands on the water. They say that against the backdrop of autumn, when the leaves are like this, all yellow, yes, there is something like that. When the red color is floating above, it's less noticeable to people. So, well, for everything else, so the red is floating on top of the water. At the bottom, it's white. When a pike bites, you have the live bait down here. And we'll talk more about that later. The circle simply flips over, turning white on top, and when the pike starts pulling the line, the circle begins to unwind. And you can see from the side, this ball with this little bump is just spinning. So you see that you have a bite, and the line is being pulled out, because here it just blinks. You see, it's like blam, 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 like this. Friends, also this shape. Here, they say it's a special shape, you see. It has a dip inside, that's the vacuum. When you place it on the water, it kind of sticks down a bit. And in the waves and wind, this circle just stays put. Well, they're a bit stuck to the water. This way it holds better than just like this. There's less chance that it will flip over from the wind or a light bite from the live bait. And you'll end up with a false alarm, meaning there won't be a bite, and you'll just see the circle flipped over. And all this stuff is better. From my observations, I'll say right away, for example, I fish here. If you set the circles like this with the red side up, they're really visible. I don't know where. You can see them from kilometers away. So someone is driving in a car, sees the circle, and they're like, whoa, look, they're catching pike. Everyone starts to pull up. People are passing by in boats and they see all of this. It's real. Well, for me, it's suspicious. Because look, right now at the water, yeah, right there. All the video is in one shot, guys. Take a look at the water. And look at how it behaves. For example, do you see the reflections from the sky on a cloudy day? When there's a circle like this, red, but I can see it. I can really see it from here on the other shore. And when I set the circles with the white side up, that's all reflection. It's completely unclear. Many people don't even see those circles because feathers are floating around. For example, there are all sorts of birds and other things floating around, some bottles and other things on the water, and when there's something white in the distance, it blends in. You really can't see it. That's why I do it this way. Many set it up differently. Honestly, it doesn't really matter which side you put the circle on. The main thing is that it's comfortable for you. If you're going to cut it out of foam at home, you won't have this special mold that sticks. Therefore, as he wants, so we know this expression, right? Whatever is more convenient for you. The main thing is that the fish are biting and being caught. So here's the circle, this little dot. I'm saying it again, I do it this way, and when I see a bite, it flips over to this red thing. I can see from a distance, anywhere. The reel is set up like this, and just like that I can see this reel. Everything works great. Everything is great. What's the point of this little dot? It serves like a cue, a buoy, a float. First of all, you can see the line unwinding because of it when it reels in. Secondly, when it's underwater, it kind of compensates for the flipping with the wave like this. Here's the live bait. That is, well, working with it better, you insert it a little deeper like this. It's how to say, like, well, as I said, cue, yes, underwater, like this, it's better. It is less likely that this circle will simply turn over for you. That's it. I hope I told you clearly. I want to tell you everything in detail. I don't know how to think it through. To get the message across to the viewer, it's pretty tough to shoot videos like this. So about this circle, you really don't need to know much more about it. Just set it up however you want, if you want the special mold facing down. Now let me tell you about the options for equipping the circles. So, this thing is designed to flip over when you get a bite. It will spin for you. Now I'll tell you about the options for equipping the circles. So, in my arsenal, there are 3 types of circles. The first type is the floating circle. How should I put it? It's considered one of the most effective because it covers a large area. You need to keep an eye on the big horizons. So the floating one is not a stationary circle. The one you set up, it just stays there. It really floats. He swims in calm weather. If there is no calm, no waves, no current, it floats due to the fact that the live bait twitches. And the live bait drives the circle. If there is a wave of current, he simply goes with the wave of current. Now, I'll talk about the pros and cons of rigging. Let's start with the rigging. The rigging of this circle is similar to a winter tip-up. That is, we have either a double or a triple. Here's the leader. Here it is. In this case, I have a fluorocarbon leader. Here, I've already got a tangle for some reason. This is one of the floating circles. Next, we have, and I'm showing you carefully here, the leader, a swivel, a sinker, which is a small weight, a rubber sliding weight, and another sinker. And then the main line, you should spool at least 10 meters of main line, but it really depends on the depth where you're fishing. Now I've started to feel a little drizzle on my hood because it's really getting chilly outside. The weather is only good for catching pike, right? It's gotten nasty outside. The weather is only good for catching pike, yeah. I'm here telling you about the circles. So rig it this way. If you are fishing at great depths, then do. So you should have more line with a bit of extra, of course, around 15 meters, maybe even up to 20 meters. I'm fishing at shallow depths, so I've got about 10 to 12 meters at most. What are these stops for? Look, they sort of regulate the movement of the live bait. If you want the live bait to move around more, not just along the length of the leader, because with the weight here, the live bait only moves like this, roughly speaking, you just take these stops and raise them higher, and your movement increases. Plus the move, of course, will be on its own from the very circle. This is how you do it. Why do you need the lower sinker if you're not planning to adjust the movement of the live bait? The bottom pellet, this is the stopper pellet, the rubber one will save you. The live bait twitches from these hits and the sliding weight hits the swivel. This can, according to experienced anglers, alert the pike when it hears the hits. It might just not take it, and that's it. So what we're doing is, for example, a floating circle, the background depth is about 3 meters. So the depth of the bay, we know it's 3 meters. We're setting it at, well, I don't know, about 1.5 meters deep. Whoever wants to do it their way goes ahead and does it. I do this so that I have white at the top. We insert another stick like this. We turn it. On the circle, we have cuts. 1, 2, 3, 4 cuts. 4 notches allow us to adjust the depth literally to this distance. So we take it, insert it into one of the cuts like this, bam. We also made a small cut in the stick, bam. And we insert it right here, there we go. This is what this thing looks like. Here we have a side outlet. Here we have this thing going like a little boat, yeah. When a pike bites, the live bait is floating right here and it happens like this. It takes the live bait and pulls. With this line, the circle flips over, the spinning plastic pops out of here and it just starts to unwind and that's it. You see, on different circles it's different. Here I have the head made, just painted, one color, and when it starts to unwind, I'll only see the bites by the jumps, the circle itself, and by the red color. This is one. So you understood how to do it, right? They made a cut 1, 2, 3, 4 and a cut in the very bottom of the hole. We tossed it in here, tossed it into this bobber, and tossed it right here. So this is what we end up with. Guys, 1.5 meters. So this is a floating circle. You see, there's no weight at all. So this thing will just float on the water. You put this circle, and that's it. Watch it. You can set up such circles, I don't know, 3, 4, 5. The main thing is to remember that one fisherman can have no more than 5 circles. So you spread them out and just sit there watching them. Plus, what's great is that you can cover a larger area right away. One floating circle can cover a lot of territory. That is, the crucian carp will not just stand in one place, but will swim everywhere. It's great because there's more area to fish, more pikes. Really? Well, you can catch it, right? It's 23. Depth. We know that the pike can't see. It can see from the side, but it's a bit crap. It's bad underneath it. It sees well above. Predators have their eyes positioned that way. So when the circle is moving, it can see all of that. Again, it's about covering more territory, which is a downside. You need to keep an eye on them constantly, meaning you really have to watch these circles so they don't drift away or get tangled up. And there can constantly be grass or algae floating by, and there will always be snags. Well, plus they can really drift away 100, 200 meters in just about 20 minutes. So that's a big downside of these circles. You need to keep an eye on them. And they say that the circles catch fish well. I caught fish on them. On these floating circles, if we take it in percentage terms compared to stationary ones, it will be about 40 to 60. So I caught 40% on floating circles. Now, let me tell you about the stationary standard circle that I use. I'm not going to tell you how to set up the circle or how to do it. You understand that the pimboshka is the same everywhere and the cuts are all done exactly the same. So our stationary circle is made as follows, where we have the main line going, the main line at the very bottom of the main line, we're tying the weight, but this weight should be no less than 100 grams. So I recommend you do it this way. Next we have the swivel, like this. I'll show you everything now, guys. The swivel leader, meaning the swivel is just threaded onto the main line with a sinker on top and a sinker at the bottom. This little stopper is attached to the swivel and it's the length of the leader. Well, as they say, everyone does it differently and it's really 40 centimeters because this is 40 centimeters. This is the movement of your bait around the line. If you're using the main line and fishing close to the reeds, then make the movement smaller. Are you fishing in shallow depths? What depth are you at? Fishing less than 40 centimeters. Make it shorter. So it's all very simple. I'll say it again. The main line. At the bottom of the main line, we tie a weight and then we make a leader. With 2 of these little rubber beads, 2 sinkers. Why is this needed? Guys, with the help of these rubber sinkers, the stoppers, we can adjust the depth. So for example, I arrived and the depth is 3 meters. And like this, I want to fish, for example, so that my bait is in the middle. I just take it like this, whoop, and pull it up. I arrive and the depth is shallow. I just take it, pull it down all the way down to the very bottom. You see the weights? Yeah, just like that. And that's it. Well, of course, you need your hook, whether it's a treble or a double, to be at least about 10 centimeters above your weight. Like this, so that it ends. The weight was up top. The hook with the bait, because there might be silt, there might be algae, the weight might sink a bit, and the bait will end up dragging along the bottom. The most important thing is that the bait is constantly moving and not tangled up. This is the most important thing that should be in place when fishing with a float. If the bait gets snagged somewhere, wraps around some grass with the leader, it won't move and the chances of a bite will drop. Well, Almost zero. It should always be flapping around, swimming. That's how it is here, like the wounded thing at K. You see, it should weigh tons, and it has no chance to swim away. Something's off with the fish, and it's easy to grab and eat. This is really what you need to know. That's it. I think it's clear how to make a stationary float. It's very simple. I would say that the stationary float is number one in my arsenal. Why is that? Because you can place stationary floats very close to the reeds, almost right up against it, and catch pike there. Guys, you can set a stationary float at any depth. You hardly need to keep an eye on it. Well, except of course for the bite. So you set it up. You might spend an hour there. Float around, check the bait, see if there's a bite, catch a pike, come home. Happy, basically. That's how it goes. You can put a stationary circle, as I say, in the reeds, in a hole, anywhere, and it won't go anywhere, so your bait will be exactly where you want it to be. That's a real plus. You can set these floats up for the night, and you can fish with them for a long time. You can hardly notice it in the company. I would say that this stationary float with a weight is one of the best, because you don't have to keep an eye on it. You can leave it right next to the reeds, and it gets tangled the least. But, you see, the floating float and the stationary one are completely different types. So, as I told you, the way the floating float presents the crucian carp is like a winter tip-up, with the crucian carp at the bottom and nothing extra anywhere. So the fish swims more freely and nothing holds it back. So this float has its limitations, meaning from below, a fish, for example, a pike might come by, but something's off with the line, it's kind of twitching. And that might alert the predator. If the predator is in a feeding frenzy, of course, it's not always right to be on edge, but still, that's a downside of this particular float. Minus a small volume, a small area for fishing. So, wherever you set it, that's where the weight is at the bottom, and it might get tangled somewhere. So, basically that's your bait, but the pike might get spooked. Well, that's more like a downside. I didn't see it while I was fishing. That's it. So it might take longer to set up this float because you need to measure the depth, lift the bait, then lower the weight again so that the line is taut. Well, it's a bit more complicated to set up, just about 30 seconds. I think it's all nonsense, right? This is the second type of floats, the stationary one, which I really recommend you to make. And they will really catch fish just like the floating ones. The next type of floats is the float with a bobber. You see, I have marked the bobber. This float is made exactly the same way as the stationary float. The main line is going through as you understood, right? Just like that. The leader is attached to the main line using 2 stops and a swivel. 2 stops, a swivel. The depth is adjusted in exactly the same way. Everything is the same. Only the leader is made, you. See, about 1 meter long, right? I have 1 meter leader, and in the middle of this leader, I also have stops on both sides and a wine cork. A wine cork, a piece of wood, and a treble hook. Why is this needed? Let's say I find some area in the bay where the depth is about 30-40 centimeters, but I can see for real, there are reeds, vines, it could be great. My leader will actually scrape the bottom if I set a stationary float there, and it's practically impossible to set a stationary one there. Because of the shallow depth, the length of the leader will interfere with all of this. But I want to catch something there. But I'm not going to cut the leader on the stationary one to make it shorter. No, I just take this bobber with you. To adjust the depth, up to 10 centimeters. And I have the live bait swimming at a depth of 10 centimeters and the cork is on top. So you see guys, here's another plus. 1 meter, as I said, let's say this leader, the live bait's movement creates a diameter of about 1 meter. At a depth of 10 centimeters, you can cover all the shallow areas, and that's a huge plus. We know that live bait always burrows down, looking for some grass to hide and take cover. The float always pulls it up, and the fish starts to resist. So the live bait, so to speak, doesn't get lazy, and is always in the game. It's always active, and that makes the pike pay attention to it. It's not like he's just lying there, all sluggish, not moving. Then he swims a bit, then swims again. No, he's always really swimming because of this float, so to speak, constantly pulls it up. He just torments it, and the live bait fights until the very end. This is one of the best options. Tackle for shallow waters. At first, I thought that this cork would scare the pike away, and I wouldn't catch anything. Nothing. Like that, right? But when I caught my first pike of the season on a bobber, I was really blown away. It was a tiny river. You saw that video. It was a micro river. And this circle was actually sitting at such a depth, meaning the river flows. There's a little bump turning left where the appendix is, and there's such a depth there with no current. I put that bobber in there and it immediately starts getting hit. The pike was just in shock, really. It had only been about 20 minutes. I have my first bite. Plus, we can fish. With this equipment, we can fish shallow depths, we can regulate the depth. The live bait really plays. There's no line at the bottom. Yeah, it swims however it wants, and that's great. But there's a downside. Of course, there's the possibility of tangling. The live bait might get caught on something and get a bit tangled. With this large diameter, you might not even notice it. Another downside, the swivel around the line can get a bit messed up somewhere. Yeah, it can get tangled. So those are basically all the downsides. But the pike can also get suspicious of the cork itself. Think about what this is. Yeah, it's a cork, some kind of cork. The fish, it's not going to take anything. Well, as I noticed, the pike is practically fine. It reacts to this, it's not scared at all. So these are the three types of tackle circles that I fish with. Next, what we will talk about is the double or doubles. To be honest, I use both, and for both, and for both. So far the bites are going well. They say that pike bite better on a double hook. When it takes the live bait in its mouth, that's when the pike attacks. It starts to chew on it, and it gets hooked less on the double hook, and then it just gets caught. And the treble hook, the third hook, it kind of pushes against something, the shape of the treble hook. So it turns out this one is more voluminous, while the double hook is kind of flat. This is also another option, but I catch more with both. Still, I always keep an eye on the circles, and if I see any bites, I immediately go around right away. I really hook them, and I believe that with a treble hook, there are more options. If you're observing, there are really 3 hooks to catch like this, but the double hook gets caught less in the weeds. Anything can get caught when the live bait is just swimming around. So, these are the real advantages of double hooks. When it comes to leaders, there are a lot of leaders and a lot of different opinions. Steel, titanium, whatever people are using, I actually go for fluorocarbon. Let's say I might have a cutoff sometime. In all my fishing trips, I only had one cut from a pike. As the local guy said, it was probably some kind of King Kong over there because he's seeing a 0.55 leader get bitten through for the first time. And when it bites, I see a bite. My circle is unwinding. I paddle over to it in my kayak. I see it. I grab the line, and when I set the hook, I don't feel any resistance, and then the line just goes out easily. I'm just reeling it in as if it's just lying on the water. That is, the pike simply apparently gnawed our live bait, and somewhere between the baits the fluorocarbon got in, and that's how it bit it off at a 45-degree angle. This was such a case, but that's the only case of all. Maybe it was a mammoth that got lost somewhere, I don't know. But such pikes will bite on fluorocarbon much better. I even talked to experienced fishermen. With one grandpa, he says, "I'm floating around, but there are no bites at all, nothing for me." In general, I use fluorocarbon. I'm starting to get bites, pikes. We know that the refractive index of fluorocarbon is close to the refractive index of water. It's more abrasion resistant than regular line. That's a big plus for it. And it's definitely soft. If, for example, we have a live bait on the string, just swaying like that, only along the line, and that's it. So with fluorocarbon, it looks much more elegant, much more attractive, probably tastier for the pike. I still use it and will continue to use it, and on winter tip-ups too. Fluorocarbon. So I recommend using fluorocarbon if you want to catch pike and see bites on live bait. So that's basically everything I wanted to tell you. If by the place were to put... So, first of all, I recommend small bays. So you see there's a riverbed, and then suddenly there's an outlet even somewhere in the middle of the river. Like this, bays with a depth of 1 meter, half a meter. There's some grass, some reeds nearby. Make sure to set it in shallow water so you don't have any grass, reeds or mud at the bottom. It's best to have an open area. So there's grass, reeds, and then suddenly there's a bare spot like sand right at the bottom. Are you setting it there? Live bait. You can see it from afar in this bright spot. When the pike comes out, it sees, wow, look at that, it's totally crazy, swimming in open water. I can really set it there. And that's it. So you set it in places like that. Well, of course, all the pike are now in the reeds, along the reeds. Again, places with backflow, with a slight current, some little bays just along the reeds, as close to the reeds as possible. As much as you can, make sure your live bait doesn't get tangled in the reeds themselves. So set it as close as you can, guys. It will definitely be there. As for the bite, take a look. Pike have this thing called feeding times. So it can come out in the morning, bite for half an hour, maybe a little at lunchtime, and then in the evening. That's right. All the anglers know about this. The athletes know. Everyone knows. So on the last fishing trip, we set up the floats with my knee, and we waited with the floats. It's been 4 hours, and we're already thinking about heading home. The sun is setting. There's practically nothing. It's starting to get dark. In about half an hour, it will be completely dark. The pike will come out. I catch a pike with one float, the second float triggers a pike, and the one that's floating gets a bite. One live bait is submerged and the pike is splashing, splashing, splashing. It's real in the rivers. It came to life right before my eyes in just half an hour. So, the fish has its feeding times and you need to wait for them. The feeding times are in the morning and in the evening, as I told you in the video about catching perch. It is best to catch in the morning because there is a break between food. The fish has the biggest at night. At night it does not eat, it just stands there. Well, maybe somewhere there, something is languishing pike until at night it is necessary to be active. Well, it does not feed, and in the morning at dawn it sees everything, comes out, worked hard during the day. It might nibble a bit, have a little snack here and there, and then in the evening, it's back to the evening again. It will want to eat before a long break, so it's best to fish in the evening and in the morning, but the morning is more effective. But the main thing to know is that before this expected evening or morning exit, all your gear should already be set up and checked. So you set the float and it's really in place, and then you paddle away from there as far as you can so it stays in your line of sight. But you didn't scrape with your paddles there, because if you start scraping with your paddles, it will just get scared, and that's it. It is very afraid of noise. Now the sounds are spreading, the water is clear, so for the pike it is very... Guys, it's important just like that. If you liked the video, give it a thumbs up. If you're not tired of my rambling, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Write in the comments about what else you'd like me to talk about. So, feel free to add your own experiences with the gear and the floats, so to speak. Your experience catching pike with this gear. I would also be interested to read, I told you how I do it somewhere. Maybe something is right, something is wrong. But I catch it like that. I shared this with you guys. So I wish you all good luck. Don't be a fish out of water, everyone. See you later, friends.